Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another Brave 9 video. Okay, so before we proceed with today's video, there are two things that I want to inform you guys. Number one, alright, there's a new coupon code that you guys can try inserting. It's called Legend. So feel free to insert the coupon code. I'll have the links to this particular Facebook post in the description below, especially if you're on iOS. I think there's no option for you to insert a link through the game, so you'll have to use the links provided right there. Also, you can subscribe to the Brave 9 newsletter, and I'll have the links to this particular one as well. Alright, so the Brave 9 newsletter is basically like for example in the previous, I think a couple of videos ago, I actually posted one coupon code, so that was actually from the newsletter, the BN News one. So make sure you guys subscribe to the Brave 9 newsletter so that you can get some bonus or additional coupon codes maybe in the future perhaps. So yeah, there might be more like events, exclusive rewards in the newsletter, so make sure you guys subscribe to this as well if you wish to continue playing the game. Alright, so let's jump into the video. Okay, so first things first, I know there's a lot of mixed opinions right now on the field. So we're going to talk about the Octos. All four of them has been reworked. So let's have a look at them individually. So we have Velphen, we have Vols, Marmone, and emote. So personally, I've already built my emote. I've already built my Velphen as well, maxed out. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I can speak from an experience standpoint, alright? From a more experienced point of view. So Velphen, when I first look at his skills, I thought it was pretty bad, not gonna lie. The more I use him, the more I think he's OP. Alright? I think he is probably the one that received probably the least amount of changes, and that was sort of my expectations at all. I didn't make like a skill prediction of what I think they would change. I did not know that this skill will still be here. Alright, so this particular skill, okay, let's just have a glance at maximum skill plus 15. Because I think Velphen and Marmone is going to be something that's easily achievable with plus 15, since we are getting gem side quest 3 of, getting one of them at plus 9. So at plus 15, not only does he get this bonus range, which is insane. This is better than Livia. Alright, it's better than Livia's tiles because it hits in this fashion. And knowing Velphen, he is a skip tile as well. His damage is significantly improved. Now, I'm not a big fan of this first skill right here. Okay, so if you look at this, it depends on enemy's debuff. So if enemy has debuff applied on them, he will deal fixed additional damage upon the additional one coming from this skill. Okay, so that's going to give him, like, this is a lot of boost, 300%. But most of the time, if enemies are debuff immune, so they won't really get this. But this secondary skill right here does help him in a way. Boosts his defense by 95%, and he also has 5% base defense. So that means almost always he will get 100% defense when he is about to attack the enemy before normal attack 2 turns. I wish this skill was similar to Livia's one in a way, to make him has 100% defense consistently, but unfortunately it's not, so this will only occur before normal attack. So Velphen he's still really strong, okay? So this skill, Permanent Death, Advanced Death Absorption, is pretty OP. As you can see, it does a couple of things. Number one, deals fixed damage to enemies in proportion to the number of graves in both battlefields when attacking. So times 100%. So graves on either one of these sides. Alright, the more graves, the more damage. And that also boosts his attack plus 15% to the proportion of the number of graves. So if there are 10 graves, for example, he's going to get 150% attack boost, and this is going to deal 1000% additional damage, which is insane if you think about it. So more graves means he's going to be more consistent. Now, this is the reason why I am a big fan of Velphen, alright, because I do think his damage is consistent throughout comparatively, like compared to all the other fields. Alright, I think Velphen, I'm kind of debating if he's actually the best one out of the 4. He might actually be the best one or the second, but we're gonna jump into that later. So for now, I think Velphen is really solid. As you can see, pretty straightforward skill. fixed damage. Alright, remember, Velphen is going to deal fixed damage. So that means you cannot give him fatal or rage runes because those will not do anything to him. He doesn't need crit rate or crit damage. He just needs pure assault. Okay, all assault runes. And then the energy guard is pretty interesting in my opinion. Okay, so they change how his energy guard works. It's no longer scaling off based upon HP. It now scales off upon attack. So I thought that was pretty cool. Max energy is equals to attack at the start of battle times 700%, and energy restoring amount every turn is attack times 35%. So he does regenerate quite a lot of energy guard based upon his attack. So 2 assault runes is the way to go. You want to go percentage based on what I've tested. Percentage is the battle scaling one. So I do think that Velphen is pretty OP. Alright, he does have debuff immunity as a permanent skill and incoming damage minus 50%. Now this is going to matter a lot against a lot of other units. Okay, this incoming damage thing surprisingly plays an important role in his survivability. Surprisingly. Okay, so let's jump into Marmone. Okay, looking at Marmone's skills at first glance, you would think that she's OP. Alright, let's look at plus 15. She has cross tile. Okay, pretty cool. She hits very front. So cross tile very front is not super good compared to something like skip, for example. That way you can consistently hit at least 3 tiles. In this case, front you can hit 2 units at most. So what is changed on Marmone? Number 1, she now attacks 4 times. So it's like a multi-hit, deals barrier ignoring additional damage to the enemy for every attack. So she ignores barrier as well. Any form of incoming damage reduction, she will ignore that. It scales off max HP, alright, times 50%, 15% additional damage. And then she has one more skill right here. Alright, survives damage to death by setting HP to 1 instead of dying and terminates the Night of Death effect. So what this does is Marmone has a death guard as well. So once that death guard goes away, once Marmone is about to die, she basically will not die instantly. She has 1 HP. So Marmone can survive Alec in a way, right? Because she will never die, this will always activate. And once this activates, she also have a death guard. Unfortunately, this only lasts for 10 turns, and this is only a one-time death guard. Looking at her skills, it can get really complicated, but I'll try to explain what's happening. And then if you look at the second skill, this is a glorified version of Valter's Advanced Nullifier. Okay, it does nullify any buffs that can be nullified. Okay, this includes taunt as well. Alright, it includes taunt. So it also buff prohibits the enemy from receiving any buffs for 18 turns. So these two combined together is pretty OP. Alright, and then looking at this skill right here, Advanced Energy Guard, Marmone's Energy Guard is still the same. So it still scales off HP, but she has a second Energy Guard which activates for 10 turns, and this will only activate when the first Energy Guard runs out. She will have this skill activated, max HP times 1000%. Now, looking at this, you would think, wow, this is so cool, right? On paper, it looks really strong because Marmone can get 100k Energy Guard, 200k Energy Guard. It's impossible to destroy her during these 10 turns. But the problem is, it only lasts for 10 turns. That's the biggest problem. That's the biggest downside of this skill. Like, in sort of a way, she works similar to Arcan. So I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of that. Fighting Marmone, I don't know. So far I've fought plus 12 Marmone a lot. I haven't fight a plus 15 yet. But looking at the skills, I am not a big fan of her kit overall. So, and then she has debuff immune. Alright, and also incoming damage reduction again. Looking at this, alright, you might look at this and you see, okay, well, she attacks 4 times. That's going to make her better than Ilienia, right? That's the first thing that will come to your mind, and that's the first thing that came to mind. Okay, hits front, attack 4 times. This is a Ilienia replacement for sure. She is not. I'm going to tell you guys why. This is good against Lucius, for sure. This is good against Seto, right? But after experimenting more and more, this is very, very bad against Kaelin. Alright, I have fought Marmone plenty of times. She just dies to my Kaelin. Instantly dead. Alright, so you guys can feel free to go and watch any of the live stream that I did earlier today. is also weak against Jhin. I saw Marmone dies to Jhin a couple of times. So Ileana will never die to Kaylin or Jhin. In fact, Ileana is a very good counter to those two. So Marmone is not as good as I thought. So she does have some strengths, she does have some weaknesses, you know, good against Lucius and Seto for sure, but yeah, it's more of a pros and cons thing. So I don't think this makes it any better in a lot of ways. Alright, this skill is like it's good. If you look at this, okay, it's good. But Galenia already can do this, right? And she essentially has a built-in Galenia skill onto her. So she has like 3 layers. So first things first, she has this energy guard, right? She has the energy guard. Once this energy guard gets removed, she has a second energy guard that activates. Once the second energy guard activates, which by the way, it only lasts for 10 turns, okay? After 10 turns, everything disappears, she will only have her HP. So you cannot kill her still, because if you try to one-shot her, she will have 1 HP remaining, and if you still hit her after that, she has Death Guard for 1 time. So she has multiple layers of protection. Ideally, in a lot of situations, you might look at this and be like, wow, that is pretty OP. But Lucius already exists, right? We already have Lucius plus 15 that can survive lots of hits. So I don't see Marmone being super good. Against certain units, she might be better, like against multi-hit units. But against units that like one-shots, let's say Livia, Alec, etc., I think Lucius can still do an equally better job, right? Or they can, I would say they are both pretty even. In a lot of ways, they are both pretty even. I wouldn't say like Lucius is like way better than Marmone, but I wouldn't say Marmone is an upgraded Lucius either. So if we are talking about defensive abilities, defensive capabilities wise, I can pretty safely say that they are pretty even right now. So far, I have tested my S-Mode can one-shot a Marmone. My S-Mode literally destroys a plus 12 Marmone, remove the first energy guard, and the second guard activates. So that will never happen to a Lucius, right? So there's pros and cons going into this, which you guys have to decide. So comparing Marmone and Velphen, I honestly prefer Velphen more because Velphen deals damage. He's not meant to tank, which is fine. And if you have CLR comp, Velphen is just way stronger. But this is based upon day 1 impressions. Things might change later on, down the line. This is all I can say for now. I would prefer Velphen over Marmone. That's just my own personal preference for now. Alright, moving on into Vols. Let's talk about her for a bit. We have to talk about her at plus 15. Okay, look at her skills. You're gonna think, okay, this is pretty crazy range. So now she has this 2 Tal, and she has this Nullifier, buff prohibits enemies. She has this skill. They changed how this skill works. Now it ignores enemies' damage reduction effect caused by defense. Before this, it ignores enemies' damage reduction caused by the incoming, the barrier, right? By those incoming damage reduction skills. So now it ignores defense, 100% defense, which I don't think makes it better in my opinion. I think this makes it worse. This makes her worse than before. I fought a battle earlier. She was struggling to kill my Celia because of this skill. If this ignores barrier, she could have one-shot my Celia because Celia has about 65% damage reduction, so that allows my Celia to survive. So I'm not sure if I like this skill, to be honest. I don't really like this skill as much as before, okay? Not only because of incoming damage reduction, but because 100% defense is no longer a thing. We are no longer in the meta of 100% defense. That meta is long gone. It's like at the beginning of 2020. Yes, 100% defense was OP back then. Right now, in the current meta that we are at, is either you have guard type skills that can survive, Kaylin, Archon. You know, you need to have guard type skills to be able to survive. 100% defense is no longer a thing. So I don't see this like being good. Maybe in Guild Wars this can be used, but in PvP, I honestly don't see the consistency of this thing. Alright, stats weakening is really good on her. I like it because before this you always need to buff her with Veronia or something because she always get cursed. This makes a lot of sense. Alright, this is a good step. She still dies to Seto though, alright, because she doesn't have any DOT immunity. So if you want to use her, you still need to give her DOT immunity, either Galenia or anyone else, alright? So keep that in mind. And she has this particular skill, which is pretty cool, okay? Deals direct damage to main target in proportion to the number of graves in both battlefields when attacking. So look at this skill right here. So boost attack in proportion to the number of graves in both battlefields. So she's similar to Velphen, right? Where she get more damage based on the battlefield. This is probably the biggest downside of her. Velphen makes sense, okay? Velphen, to have this kind of skill on Velphen or any magicians, it makes sense because they never move in the first round. They will always move at second round. By round 2, there should be several graves on the battlefield already. So that way, they can benefit from having the boosted attack. But this particular skill present on a warrior is highly questionable. Super highly questionable. That means your Vols should not move first. Your Vols should move like 3rd or 4th so that you get more graves, right? So that you can, you know, initiate with something like Orphina or Christina or whatever. And I don't think it makes a lot of sense, to be honest, because by then, she might have died. Like, that's the biggest problem. She doesn't have anything to prevent her from dying. She does have Death Guard again, but this is only before she attacks. So before she's about to hit the enemy, she has Death Guard activated so that she doesn't die to counter. But in terms of her being idling there, waiting for her turn to move, she might die in the process. So I am not a big fan of her kit, to be honest. I think she's going to be solid in Guild Wars, in Underground Arena, in battles that you can plan and see ahead of time and plan things out. But in Arena where inconsistency persists, I honestly don't see her being that good. Now again, this is just my opinion. If you still want to build her, go ahead. I strongly believe there's ways to make her look good and there's ways to make her really strong in certain scenario. But I think if you are a F2P BTW, you might want to reconsider of not building her. You might want to consider going the Alec route for a safer, more secured route. So Alec deals direct damage to 3 tiles. She only deals direct damage to the main target, and the side target, what she does is she ignores their defense. So if they have 100% defense, she will ignore them. But remember, she does not ignore the incoming damage reduction that they have. So if they are like Velter or they are like Livia, you know, they have the barrier still, she might still struggle to one-shot them. And so far, I have encountered a couple of plus 12 Vols. I have not encountered much plus 15. I'm sure she can work, like I mentioned, but I just don't like her kit. So yeah, moving forward, I honestly think out of the 3, I think she's the worst one. Alright, let's have a look at Asmode. And yeah, we're gonna have a look at Asmode and we're gonna do a final or rankings of all the 4 Octos. Now, Asmode is gonna be really different. They rework his kit entirely. I am not a big fan of it at first, but after using him more and more, I think it is actually a buff. So looking at his kit at plus 15, you get this skill. Okay, so they modify this skill accordingly. So if you look here, it says deals defense ignoring additional damage to the enemy. So Asmode will basically ignore defense now. So it's still based upon current HP times support times 30% additional damage. Now this is very important, time support. So that means Asmode's support stats right here is very crucial. So it makes sense to rank boost Asmode actually. When you rank boost, he goes up to 200%. So that means his damage is going to be boosted significantly, which is crazy. Alright, so I think he's one of the few units that I can say, okay, if you want to rank boost Asmode, it makes a lot of sense. Because it will boost his damage. But you get this already at plus 12, you don't really need to go forward. Alright, so what do you get by moving forward in the skills? So remember, he still have pillage and stuff. So going into this skill, he now has an aura. So what does Asmode's aura does? Okay, so he does give crit rate and crit damage for 100 turns. So 20% crit rate, 40% crit damage. And when he dies, similar to Helga, he further activates more crit rate and more crit damage and gives it to an ally. or to everyone in this case, alright? So 25% crit rate and 50% crit damage, which is crazy. Okay, so looking at that, Asmode also has this particular skill which makes him immune to debuff. Okay, applies charm to himself so that he supports the enemy, and he has this incoming damage heal and stuff, and also reflective charm, which probably won't matter much. It does matter against Vols, I guess, because Vols does not have immunity against attack interference unless you buff her. But overall, so Asmode can only be defended by something like Lucius, Seto, etc. So not many units can actually defend against Asmode. So looking at Asmode's kit, he still works the same, it's just that now he counters more units than before. Alright, and also he's much more buff dependent now, so you need to buff him more than before as well. So I do think that moving forward, I think Asmode is a really strong unit if you can get him up. I tried using him with just Rafitia alone, and his buff is not enough at plus 12, maybe at plus 13 or plus 14, that's going to be significantly better. So yeah, I'm going to test that out hopefully later, once I can get Asmode to plus 14. But if I look at every single unit right here, and if I were to rank them, I would say Velphen and Asmode is probably the best one out of the 4. Okay, followed by Marmone, and Vols is probably the last one. So this is just my own personal preference. Yeah, overall I actually have been using Velphen. I got him to plus 15 and Asmode is plus 12 right now, and I think they are both really solid. It's just that it's quite complicated on what kind of teams they can fit in. Obviously, I'm going to try to do more testing as time goes. But again, if you guys are still undecided on Velphen versus Marmone, maybe you want to wait for a bit. Don't rush to build them, okay? Because if you make the wrong decision, that's going to cost you quite a lot of, legend books and stuff. My advice is maybe wait first, because right now it's only the first day, right? Maybe just give it a couple of days, then we can probably see a much better conclusion from that point onwards. Alright guys, so that's gonna be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you do, subscribe to the channel, give this video a like. I'll see you guys in the next one. As always, have a nice day. Goodbye.